We'll continue with old business, a motion to accept the minutes of September 1, 2015. The issues, Pete?
No, so moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
We have an issue, take a look at the calendar for next meeting to see if we want to do anything with that. In addition, we have the preliminary budget discussion with the warrant committee.
Yes,
Correct.
that's the 22nd, I believe. Is that-
22nd.
Yeah, yeah.
We have Council of Aging.
They're coming in to discuss their budget and
Yeah.
lead into the warrant committee.
Right, and I think when we met with them earlier, we said that they would come back in the fall, which I think is part of this meeting, to see, we had talked about if there were ways we can speed up and make better the whole process. We discussed a number of different issues with that, so I think we'll have that first, and then that leads into their, is that the general discussion with the warrant committee?
Well, the warrant committee, you people indicated that you wanted to get together earlier than the annual budget meeting
Right.
in November to discuss budget guidelines,
Right.
you know, expenditure levels
Right.
and that sort of thing, projects that might be coming along, get a general sense of where we were. I've prepared a very, very preliminary tax rate estimate based on my assumptions, which you people need to review because you need to modify them to represent your assumptions rather than mine. I'm just trying to get you started and give you some guidance. So I'll get that out to you, and you can, and I'll get it out to the warrant committee members, so that you'll have some basis for discussing budget guidelines. As I said, it's very preliminary at this stage, but it's something you people indicated you wanted to start earlier, because November is a little bit too late, and you don't get into it enough.
So in the spring, the Water and Sewer Board had some budgeting issues with the superintendent. And at that point, there was a decision made to have a joint meeting between the Selectmen, the Warrant Committee, and the Water and Sewer Board to try to vet through those issues. I had thought that that was probably a better meeting to have on a Saturday than in a more casual environment than here. But I don't know, are you intending to have that meeting next week then, or not?
Well,
I think that should
no,
be
I don't.
separate.
Okay,
That's with you.
all right. Too.
This Saturday is Medfield Day. October 3rd, the warrant committee, they've asked to have their training session earlier this year. By the way, if any of you want to attend that, you're more than welcome. It'll be Saturday morning. I think they usually start around 8 o'clock. And so that'll tie up that Saturday.
The Historical Commission we set up, I think that was the 22nd.
24th, I think.
24th. So we probably, maybe after the training session for the warrant committee, we can set something up with the Water and Sewer and the warrant committee,
Okay.
and try to do that on a Saturday if,
Okay.
yeah.
I had misunderstood that you were thinking, Richard, that would be on the 22nd, that.
Well, no, I think your point is well taken. I think that would be more successful on a Saturday than it would
I think so,
on
yeah.
a Tuesday meeting. The only other thing I might like to add, Christine isn't here, but Columbia Gas has put off for, I think, too far of a period of time, repairs to the sidewalks, and I'd like to bring them in if
They're
indeed-
coming tomorrow.
Oh, they're coming tomorrow to do the repair work?
Yes, they're starting tomorrow. It was fear of coming to a selectmen's meeting that got them motivated, I
Great,
think.
that's good news then, okay. Anything else, Pete, you want on the 22nd then?
No, nothing special comes to mind.
Okay. Under new business, we have to vote to sign Chapter 90 project request, the amount of $150,000 pertaining to the Green Street project. Mike, can you fill us in with that, and then can you also just update us? I know you have some new information on Green Street.
Yeah, the Ken Feeney and Bobby Kennedy had a meeting this morning down at the town garage, and Mike LaFrancesca from the school department also attended that, with the people from the paving company that's going to do the work, and they are hoping to come in either Thursday or Friday of this week to do the base coat for Green Street. So that should be done. They're trying to get it done for Medfield Day, and they're trying to rough out, there'll be dirt sidewalks, but they're trying to get them in shape so that people coming to Medfield Day will have a relatively safe sidewalk. What they will do after they finish paving, the paving probably, there'll be 1 day of grinding and 1 day of paving, unless they can do it all in the same day, but it'll probably, I suspect it'll be 2 days. There's then another company coming in to install the curbing, and that's all in sight. What they'll do is they'll go out and they'll put the curbing, they'll just lay it along the street and then go set the curbing. Ken tells me they will not put the final coat down on Green Street until the spring. He prefers that they settle it, they let it settle over the winter in case there's any settlement where they've dug up, particularly where they've been putting in drainage structures and whatnot. You usually get a lot of settlement. So they will come back in the spring and then do the final coat. And in the spring, they'll also do the sidewalks.
And I think you said there'd be no disruption in school buses that will.
School
work
buses
as
will
well.
be able to get through, yeah. On Monday, depending on how they do on Green Street, they will start grinding on Pine Street. And they will be doing that'll probably take a week or two to grind and pave Pine Street to the Dover line. There will be disruptions they're going to try to keep it open because it's about 20 feet wide. The chief came by when Ken was here today talking about it, and he was going up to talk to the schools to see if they could get a school bus after they drop the students off tomorrow to run it along the edges of Pine Street to make sure that there are no low-hanging branches that would hit the school buses. So if there are, they'll clean those out. And then with 20 feet, they ought to be able to get the school bus by, and there aren't any steep drop-offs along Pine Street. So they feel pretty good that if there's no overhanging branches, they can keep that open for school buses. They will post signs in Dover and North Street, wherever, indicating the road is closed to through traffic. And they will try to keep it open, and they think they can keep it open to local traffic, to people that live in Medfield along those streets, because a lot of them are cul-de-sacs or dead-end streets when you get up to the far end of Pine. I believe they're also going to do Winter Street at the same time, too, so that'll be a couple of weeks they're doing that. Also, next week, or the end of this week and next week, they are starting work on Causeway Street. And that will have to involve shutting down Causeway Street for...
That's the water,
That's the
pipe
water
repair going
repair.
under the bridge, correct?
Right, they have to do directional drilling under the bridge to replace the water main. That will, he's indicated that'll take 2 or 3 days, but Ken thought it would be a little longer because they actually have to, I don't know what kind of, it's not really welding because it's a plastic pipe, but it's some kind of where they have to assemble the pipe that they're going to pull through when they do the directional drilling. So the superintendent came down this morning and he said they will not, during that period when they're actually drilling under the bridge, they will not bring school buses through there. They will route them. They'll work on other ways to route the school buses, so they will not be going up Causeway. And that will be closed probably for 2 or 3 days. Once they get the main pipe work in, they can probably open that up to local traffic, but it will definitely be closed through traffic for 2 or 3 days. Also, there's a meeting Friday morning at Hospital Road with representatives of the MBTA, our contractor, Olivera Construction, doing the water main.
It's finally going to happen, huh?
It looks that way, but I'll hold my breath.
Good.
Never. What do they say? It's never over till the rotund lady sings. So, we're gonna have a meeting on getting that completed. And the water tower's coming along quite well. They're getting ready to paint it. We had a meeting the contractor wanted to know what color to paint it. So, and they had a myriad of colors, so we ended up with tank white, which is basically the same color as the Mount Nebo water tower. You know, I've seen them in blue, I've seen them in green. They all, you know, a blue tank would look good on the one day when the blue matched the color of the sky, but it would only probably be one day every year. And the rest of the time it would sort of stand out. The white kind of absorbs the color that's around it and looks better. So I think we're going to go with the tank white.
It's been fascinating to watch how they're constructing it. I had no clue, but they're building it
is.
basically on the ground around the existing
Yes.
shaft, and then they're gonna apparently lift it up with a
Jack
crane.
it up. Yeah, they say that takes about
Hold it
5
on.
They say that takes about 5 hours to jack that up. And then they have to put the top on site, you know, they actually paint the inside and the outside of the tank to protect it from rust and whatnot, so.
Mike, just on that Causeway Street one with that good neighbor policy we had, the highway and police will notify the people on Causeway Street that that's going to be closed.
Yes, yeah.
Pete, do you want to give us a motion then on the Chapter 90
So moved.
funds?
Yep.
Yeah.
Seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
Also under new business, I just wanted to bring up, the other day I was in Brothers Marketplace parking lot, and it was a disaster. There were 2 good-sized trucks that were in there, and this massive truck came in that literally took from almost South Street all the way back, and they had 5 members of Brothers out there trying to get traffic in and out of that area. That it just seems to be an ongoing issue. And I also noticed, which is why I put this on the agenda, one of the huge beer trucks going to deliver Columbos, trying to make the bend to go into CVS onto 27. Some of these trucks now are just so huge. They're not, our entrances, I'm just questioning if they're large enough, which is why I just maybe wanted to have a note go to the planning board, whatever their rules and regulations are in the future. And these 2 examples, they're just not working. The trucks are just too large for some of these areas. And
it's going to hurt Brothers and more than it's going to hurt us, because they're going to lose business. People can't get in the store. They're just not going to go there. So they really need to address that.
because what I was going to follow up on was to see if, and I know, and Pete raised this issue a couple of meetings ago, and I'm very concerned about it. You have a 1792 house that Greg Salvatore, the owner of Brothers, also owns. And I know they've gone before the Historical Commission. They put a demolition delay bylaw on that. The clock is ticking on that. And I hear rumors he thought he could make that whole area a parking lot, and when I pursued that, without town meeting action, he cannot, if I'm correct, make a parking lot out of that, and I think you need a 2/3 vote on that. I'd like to see if we could pull together Mr. Salvadori, leaders of Brothers, a couple of the abutters, and see what can we do with this before either we lose that historic house and then nothing goes in there, or what's going to be the issue. The trucks just are too big to get into that lot.
During the time they're making them deliveries, I think the problem is they're making them deliveries during the daytime when they should be making them either early morning or
The trucks are
late
just too
afternoon.
big, and
Yeah,
then they continue to park in front of Ward's Block.
yeah.
And the trucks literally go from the lights up to James Avenue, and that's impacting the traffic that's there. It's an issue. I
Yes,
think
yeah.
we'd like to try to pull all sides together and see if we can come up with a solution to that.
Probably you need the police chief, and you definitely need the planning board, because the planning board is ultimately going to have to be the one to make the recommendation at town meeting. So why don't I ask Sarah see if she could set up something to try to address the issue.
I just like to be proactive a little bit before.
Yeah. The other thing I think you seriously need to think about is, do we want to take a serious look at putting a parking deck across the street here? You know, now the price tag is about $2 million. There may be funds available for that. We can start looking into that. But is it something that you think we want to pursue? Because next year we're going to have a restaurant and offices upstairs, presumably. I had to call the Montrose School today because now the school's back. We're having a parking problem across the street here, and part of it we think is because a number of the Montrose employees appear to be parking in the town parking lot when they have plenty of parking at their own site, but they'd have to walk further. So they've been very cooperative in the past when we've brought that problem to their attention, but you have to remind them every once in a while it creeps up. But we could get about 40 new parking spaces with a parking deck there. When we have that meeting, I think you need to seriously discuss with the police chief, with Ken, with the planning board, with the area merchants, and do we want to look into that? Do we want to get serious about doing something with that?
That's 50,000 a parking space, Mike. That's expensive, isn't it?
Yes. That's about the price of a fancy car these days, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You mentioned the thing on
there-
the eminent domain, that
Yes.
building that's right next to it that Montrose owns, that Hometown Weekly used to be in.
Oh,
Uh,
they're
I-
gonna use this
I
much.
think they have future plans for that,
On that site?
yeah. They're expanding, I think, faster than
Yeah.
they had planned, and someone told me today that they're talking about remodeling the building, that, you know, the one straight ahead when you get down James Avenue.
Which one?
It's part of the old hat factory, you know, that building straight ahead.
The annex,
Yeah. I don't know, I just, that was a rumor flying around town hall. I'm not
I
sure.
think your point is well taken. I talked to Sarah yesterday, and this downtown summit we've been talking about, she is having on the books for early November.
Oh, good.
So I
Excellent.
don't know whether this could be part of it, or this
Yeah.
is much bigger and needs to be separate.
It's probably because, you know, there are parking issues elsewhere in the center too, you know, this would solve the problem up here, but there are some problems, as you pointed out, in the Upham Road area. I noticed they paved the area behind the buildings, so that helps a bit, but that area probably could also be looked at too, to see if there's anything that could be done.
I'm not around during the day most of the time, but that parking report that Sarah circulated copies of to us indicated that there really wasn't a parking problem in the
Well,
downtown.
there isn't a parking problem if people are willing to walk
Right,
a couple of 100 feet.
right.
But, you know, you go to a shopping mall or even a Shaw's and they practically kill you trying to get the parking space closest to the door.
Yeah, and every retail merchant in the downtown wants parking right in front of their business as well.
Yes, yeah.
Ideally, there can be, but
And that's why the parking problem. The other thing, I did talk to Andrew to ask him to look into it, see if there's any way that there might be some solar incorporated into a parking deck that would, there might be some funding available, or tax credits or something to look at, so that might help. Or maybe it could be used to make the town hall energy, what do they call it, net zero energy?
yeah, net zero energy.
So those type of things, sometimes, you know, $2 million kind of scares you with all the debt we've taken on, but as we showed with the solar photovoltaic at the treatment plant, sometimes you can turn those into net positive things.
Okay,
It's
so,
a different look, too. I'm not sure that people in town are going to like the look of a parking deck.
You know,
Doesn't appeal to me, certainly.
The parking deck or the solar?
The deck,
The deck.
having a two-level parking,
Yeah, the one thing about that, though, it's in a hollow.
it is a little bit, yeah.
So you could do it without making it really very visible. I mean, it would almost, because there's a natural hollow there, the deck wouldn't, shoot way up.
So here's another idea. I mean, in your downtown, what you want ideally is retail on the first floor and some residences above that. Maybe you have a much bigger project and the town brings in a developer who'll build retail on the first floor, parking somewhere as part of the big structure, and then maybe some residences up above.
Yeah, well, we were hoping to get that next door, but I think in part because of the parking, in part because of fire regulations, they eliminated the residential.
Oh, at the Ord Block.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So the problem is our sites are so limited, you really have to do some assembly. And it's difficult with the limited number of sites we have in the center to do assembly.
Yeah, but that's a pretty big site where the municipal parking lot is.
Are existing? It's probably about less than a half acre, I think.
Oh,
So,
downtown Boston, they build a 50-story building on that.
Yes.
the issue of the Brothers Marketplace, you're going to get a hold of Sarah.
Yeah.
And the issue of the parking, be it the decked one or something different, we'll make sure it gets on the agenda at the Downtown Summit.
Yeah.
Solid Waste Committee requests Selectmen vote to accept the resignations of Carl Malaya and Scott Caldwell.
Both been very good, valuable members of that committee. It's
Absolutely.
a shame to lose them, but
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. And vote to appoint Rachel Brown as a member of that committee.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
And vote to increase the size of committee up to 9 members. They have other members that,
they thought they met this week, and there's people from the swap area, there are people that they thought would have other skill sets that they could bring to the table, and that there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done, that we could find some people willing to do surveys and such, and research and that sort of thing.
a motion to increase that to 9 members then?
Yep, so moved.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Medfield Girl Scouts request permission to have a booth outside the town hall on Saturday, October the 17th, collecting items for the food cupboard, Cradles for Crayons, and other organizations as part of their 100 hours of service in conjunction with their 100th anniversary.
What a great idea. 100 hours of service for 100th anniversary. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Let's see, in addition, they request permission to hold their celebration at the town gazebo on Wednesday, this is good planning, June 15th, 2016, from 5 to 8 p.m.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Medfield High School Student Council requests permission to hold their annual homeless sleep out fundraiser on Friday, September the 25th, beginning at 6 p.m., spending the night collecting donations for the Medway Family Shelter.
So moved.
Second, was the one that started that back about
You started that?
20 years ago.
Oh, what a great
15
idea.
years ago, and it's still going strong, which is great. Great organization that does one with the Medway Family Shelter.
And it's fun for the kids to sleep out there in
It's great.
cardboard boxes.
Medfield Green requests permission to post signs from September 28th to October 12th, advertising October as Medfield Green Month at the transfer station.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Medfield Lions Club requests permission to post signs October 25th to November 7th, announcing their annual Chowder Fest, another great activity, to be held November the 7th at the Senior Center. Motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye. They also request permission to display the town's VMS sign at the transfer station announcing the event.
I don't know what the
What is the
VMS
VMS
is.
sign?
Those are those video, the boards, yeah.
Oh, the like the police,
Like,
okay.
yeah.
The electronic board there.
Okay.
Motion to
So
that
moved.
effect. Second, all in favor? Aye. Medfield Soccer 3x3 Tournament Coordinator requests permission to display signs from September the 16th to September the 30th, promoting the October 4 soccer tournament.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
That's usually very well attended.
It's a fun
Selectmen reports, Mr. Peterson.
Went to the Medfield Energy Committee. They're going to be coming in to see the selectmen in another couple of weeks, and They're working on the Green Communities Act, and they're looking at doing a solarized Medfield program. The Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee continues on with their busy schedule. They got a bunch of financial information back from their consultants. Medfield Cares About Protection has decided to do a facilitated meeting with a facilitator to work on how to go forward. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention was that I saw a legal ad saying that Verizon Wireless is looking to co-locate, I assume on the tower that's out along Route 27. And I'm thinking that we should get in touch with them and maybe ask if they'd like to locate on a water tower up on top of a hill that's a lot higher.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll talk to Dave Max and I'll give him a call. Remember, he said you really need to go on their schedule, so,
Yeah, well, they're obviously
Check with them,
about to
yeah.
gear up, and we
Yeah.
don't,
good.
I mean, that could be 20, 30,000 a year of rent.
Good catch, yeah. By the way, I went down the cable studio, I took a walk at lunchtime, and I went in to see if it was open, and I got a tour of the place, and it's pretty fantastic.
Medfield
It's really,
TV?
it's unbelievable what
Good.
they've done down there.
They're
Yeah.
actually going to have a grand opening on Friday, October the 2nd.
7 o'clock, they're cutting the ribbon.
What else? Anything else?
No, that's it.
I just have a couple things, just to follow up on, I know, Pete, you received the same email, the gentleman on Dale and Charlesdale, about he feels the dangerous kind of intersection, and also a question of a short section of sidewalk he was looking at from Charlesdale to Grove Street.
Chris told me she talked to Bobby, and he was going to have some guys go down there today and clean it up, so I'll check
great.
with her tomorrow to make sure that got done.
Could you check on that?
Yeah.
Thanks. I just want to thank Ken and Ed Hinckley for a quick response. Coming down, my walks down on North Street, there was a dead tree right in the corner of Lower Mason Road and North Street. And I phoned it in, I just went by today and it was already down, so they moved very fast on that. There's also, which I also let them know, a large dead branch that's hanging over North Street, right at the entrance into the FAF Center. And my concern is the slightest breeze, that's going to come down on some kind of a vehicle. So I think they're knowledgeable of that. The only other thing I would like, since we're a tree city, when we do cut trees down, some kind of at least policy or encouragement from this board to see if we can have another tree planted in that spot. Otherwise, we keep, losing trees and not replanting.
Or near that spot, as Mike has pointed out, it's probably better not to be planting in that grass berm between the sidewalk and the asphalt.
This is actually
but-
back a little ways
Yeah, that's what you want,
from the
is back,
sidewalk.
and so
Yeah.
I would certainly think that should be a town policy to try to replace trees as we cut them.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Can we,
So moved.
thank you. All in favor?
Yep.
And I think the other area, and I mentioned that to Ken, he was going to try to look at it, was a large number of trees that have come down on Green Street. As much as possible, to see if we can replace some of those trees. There was quite a few that came down with that. I talked to the chief. I just want to give him accolades, I think, of a policy I think this board strongly supports, and that is his new policy. He calls it Stop, Lock, and Walk, where the cruiser on patrol stops, locks the cruiser, and the officer walks around the downtown area, goes in, says hello to the merchants and kids on the street and things like that. So he's continuing with that. I think that's a good policy and would try to encourage that as much as possible. I went to a dedication this afternoon up at the high school with members of what is now called the PTO, Medfield High School PTO, formerly the Boosters. It was in honor of the very first Booster president. That was John Minor. Was passed away a number of years ago, but his son Gary had the plaque that he was originally given, and Boosters was able to put a little information plaque above it, and that's mounted up on the gym wall, giving recognition to a lot of people that volunteered their time through the Boosters, first through athletics and now through all extracurricular activities. So just kudos to all the volunteers over the years since 1963, from the past boosters to the current PTO, and all the work they do for the high school on that. And I continue to get calls, and hopefully we're going to get rain shortly, is there just seems to be all kinds of confusion on the water ban, and people are calling me saying they're upset, they're obeying a ban, but their neighbor isn't. And I think Christine mentioned that she's trying to put together like an email system, and maybe that's going to be the answer, that people can opt into that system, right?
Yeah.
And then we can more notify them. But there just seems to be a lot of confusion. People aren't quite sure. Is it
I
odd
think that it
even?
is confusing, yeah.
Is it, what night is odd, what night is even?
The signs on the entrance to town aren't very helpful in terms of the odd even.
The other thing is I put together just a rough copy, and maybe when Mark is back next meeting, on our goals, and see if there's, if they look okay.
Thank you for doing that. That
With
was
that.
good.
And I think that is it for right now. Informational, there's some letters of appreciation that have been received from residents, and there's been some in the newspaper as well, talking about the good work of the volunteers at the swap. And maybe I'd like to just follow up on that and see if this board maybe could get a letter to, is Nancy Irwin the official leader of that?
Yes, Nancy Irwin, and there's Mrs. Pratt, Nancy Pratt, I think. Is it Pat? Patricia Pat, that's it, yes.
Could we maybe get
the
just
two
a
of
letter from the board?
Yeah,
Right.
we sent one at Christmas time.
Yes, and I told
Oh, we
them,
did, to them,
I-
okay.
It's
I
a
told them
woman,
I
Mary
would-
Pat, I think is her name.
Mary Pat, yes, yeah. I told them I would deliver those letters personally to them tomorrow,
Okay.
so I'll bring them
Excellent,
down.
thank you. Can
yeah.
you just relay this board's
Yep.
support and
Yep.
appreciation for what they do? We have a thank you note also from Elizabeth Mann for the recognition that we gave her a number of meetings ago. And as we just mentioned, Medfield Cable TV will be having their dedication on October 2nd. And the big event, of course, is this Saturday, is Medfield Day. Kicks in about 9 o'clock, run to about 3 o'clock. Weather's supposed to be excellent. Great social event for the town as well, so
And
hopefully...
there's a road race about 8:30, I think, so if anyone's interested in a road race.
Yep, there's a 5K road race and a 1K fun walk run by
Yeah.
Park and Recreation, I believe starts from the FAF Center.
From the FAF Center, I think, yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And they can sign up online, and they can also get a hold of Kevin down at the Park and Recreation.
Right.
building.
Also, one thing I'd like to mention, there was supposed to be a meeting tomorrow night on the hospital, and that's been postponed. They decided that they needed more information before they had the public hearing, so we want to make sure that people don't go out to attend a meeting that isn't going to be held, so.
Okay.
There's no definite that it was going to be at the high school, yeah? Yeah, so it will not be the high school, and no new date's been set for that, Bill? Okay. Okay.
Okay, anything else to come before the board?
Just a couple of things I wanted to mention to you. Leslie Willett's husband passed away last week.
Say it again?
Leslie Willett's husband passed away last
Oh,
week.
yes.
And then John Thompson's father passed away last week also, so they weren't on town boards, but they've been very influential too. So I'd like to extend our sympathies.
Okay, thank you.
Medfield TV.